Swear I won't forget this, why do I regret this? In my mind reckless, thoughts are feeling endless. Sitting up I'm breathless, anxiety's infectious. I feel so defenseless, betrayed and embarrassed. I hate being open, I hate being broken. I feel like an ocean filled up with emotion. Anger ain't a potion, rub it on like lotion. I can feel it soaking, reopen, the scars have awoken. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Money Talk. I'm Silvina Moschini, Executive Producer and President of Unicorn Hunters and President of Unicorn. And today we want to talk about Money Talks in a very special edition. This edition is called The Making of a Unicorn, and we're going to be sharing this conversation with Jerry GIACOMÁN, CEO and co-founder of Clara. Jerry, welcome to this special edition of Money Talks. And I want to have this opportunity to talk a little bit more about you and your story as an entrepreneur. So welcome.
Thank you, Silvina, and I hope you're enjoying Mexico City, and I appreciate the invitation today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, delighted by the wonderful tequila, the wonderful food, and of course, the amazing people and entrepreneurs here. I know you are not in town, so we cross our paths in the air. But when I have this opportunity to share with our audiences, many entrepreneurs, many investors, many people who want to be inspired by your story, and precisely would love to talk a little bit about your story. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And where did you start it? What are the origin of this company, the company that you founded, what you have done before? So would you mind sharing a little bit more about Jerry, the Jerry that people don't know yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start by saying I am Mexican. I grew up in Mexico and Latin America, and in my identity. And sometimes people don't realize that because they say, "Oh, I didn't think you were because of your last names like GIACOMÁN, Collier." Like I haven't met many GIACOMÁNs or Colliers, traveling around LATAM. But like many people in LATAM, I have a history of immigration to the region on both sides of my family. From my dad's side, GIACOMÁN's is an Italian family that was in the Middle East. That actually a family that we can trace back to Bethlehem. They moved to LATAM. I guess it was my great grandparents and grandparents' generation. And on my mom's side, a mix of mestizo and my Irish American grandfather. And there was I'm hearing, sorry.
There is a little bit of return on the microphone, but Jerry, you came, you are a citizen of the world. You come from a diverse background with parents and grandparents that came from different parts of the world. But you mentioned something in a tweet, something that struck me as extremely interesting, saying, what was the role of your grandmother and on your life as the inspiration to become an entrepreneur, and also what made in your family to want to be an entrepreneur and transform the life of people. So tell me a little bit about them.
Yeah, so I was brought up with these examples of starting from scratch, moving to a new place, and oftentimes starting your own business. And I had these examples, from both sides of my family, from my grandparents down, and yeah, both of my grandmothers actually were very strong influences in that regard for me. My dad's mother, who's still living. She would always say to us also, it's really important to think about saving and treating every cent as if it were a peso or as if it were a dollar, so that then, you'll have built up, the resources, the wealth to be able to invest, as if you had, cents for every dollar. So, my father, my family, they started their own business, and I saw how, they, when I was really young, they were kind of making ends meet. And, I remember the first house that I lived in, they were building it room by room. And so I saw, for my first few years of life, how they added, a second story and then like a little extra shed space. And over time, compounding and doing better. And this included working the weekends, and that's when I would go with my dad often to his workplace. And I remember going there on the way that we would every time go through this intersection where there was a man who was selling bubble gum and other trinkets, and my dad would always give it was 5 pesos at the time to this man who was also amputated at one of his knees, and it was clear that he was doing everything that he could to get ahead and make ends meet for himself, his family. But we kept coming back to that intersection, and the man was always there. And for me, that's one of those examples that I think a lot of people who grow up in LATAM or an emerging market context, it's just clear how even people who are really trying their best, they're in this context of society that hasn't created the prosperity, to take care, of everyone. And so, just growing up with examples like that of, this disparity or this inequality within the region, and also a difference or disparity in development between, say, Mexico and what we know in the US or what we know from other places, for me, it was always very striking. And as I was growing up, I was always thinking, what can I do myself to maybe not just create a business that is gonna, do something for myself, but that actually can do, something for the greater society and create, do something that will have impact beyond myself.
And Jerry, I love that once you said you have to take care of the little money because the big money take care of itself. And I love that because in Latin America we have been hit by many crises. The last one was the pandemic. We have many opportunities because crises come along with massive opportunities. But I wonder if this idea plus the work ethics that your parents, your grandparents taught you from early childhood had an impact on you becoming now the financial sector. Was any of the idea behind Clara impacted by the idea of taking care and managing better the money, or where did you get that idea?
I think the whole concept of sound financial management in your personal life, but also in your business and your professional life is almost instinctive at this point because I did grow up with it so much. But the idea for Clara itself, it is actually born in a way out of a crisis because it was actually early days in the pandemic a couple of years ago that my co-founder Diego and myself and a lot of our early team who came together, we were working at this other company, at a micromobility company called Grow, that had grown very quickly across the region, across all of LATAM. At one point I was the chief growth officer and coordinating, a lot of that growth as it happened. But it was very striking to us how we didn't have anywhere near the tools, the technology that would help us as a company match that agility, that speed that we were moving with that proper financial management and having clarity over our finances. And that's also how we ended up naming the company Clara. And there were issues from just having access to a means of payment, having access to a card or a way to make a bank transfer for this payment to be fully documented and having traceability over, what was spent for what purpose, when, and, what are the approvals behind it. To managers understanding their budgets, and, finance teams, accounting teams being able to, make sense of kind of the financial status of the company and report internally and externally. So, very much, I think, it's a combination of kind of something that has been brewing inside, I guess, it feels, very true to who I am, combined with, that experience being at a very fast growth company in LATAM that directly inspires wanting to start this company now, Clara, to help the next company like the one we were a part of, and now over 4,000 companies across LATAM with what we're doing.
It's very interesting, because also in my path, when I created companies, I created them because I needed something to be sold for myself, and it was not existing in the market. So how interesting it is that many of the entrepreneurs that grow businesses is because they need to address a specific issue that they face when they're trying to scale their companies, so they're trying to find a solution for a problem they have, and then voila, like many people will have as well the same problem. But you mentioned your partner. How did you meet him? When was the moment in which you decided that you want to join forces to shift industries from the micromobility to the financial technology and solutions business, and build with him? What made him join you, and what made you believe that he was the right partner to build something great as you are doing?
Yeah, so my partner in business, Diego, and I, we have both come to this startup where we work together, kind of having had a similar background in the past of, both of us having been founders before. I had spent this part of my career in Silicon Valley after actually having started my first startup in LATAM over 10 years ago at this point. And then joined Grow after a scooter company that I was starting got acquired, early on in the trajectory. Diego also had founded this company called BridgeFi that is still around, and that company created some really cool technology. It's a mesh network that lets mobile devices connect with each other without having a centralized network, so you can have kind of a decentralized internet. And this has been used a lot in like pro-democracy protests in Myanmar and Hong Kong and other places, also in music festivals, for example. So really cool technology that he built. And, this is an example of a company that, from LATAM design and LATAM founders, are creating something that is world-class, used around the world. And, he left that to join Grow. And, from the very earliest days, I mean, we had known about each other a bit, maybe had an interaction there or two in the past. But, as both of us were part of this leadership team of this startup, is for me, I would say it was sort of like a love at first sight, where, it's like almost like a dating or try to date situation where, I was always very impressed. I've always been very impressed with Diego. And what, I think he brings to any team, not just his, engineering, technical ability, but also his product mindset and like that human spirit that he brings every day. And so, there were like situations where I was like trying to, make time to, spend some time talking about, what we were interested in and what we might do at some point in the future that, early on we didn't know when it might come. As the COVID pandemic was hitting, it was very clear that there was going to be a clear off ramp for what we were doing to do something else. But it was just one of those situations where like you just find someone that you really want to work with, you want to build with, and I think that's ultimately like key to any company being successful. If you're building a team, like that team's going to be the foundation of everything that comes afterwards. And especially that group or pair of co-founders, if you're building with someone else, is so critical. And it's the first step in what I think, as a company too, we've always sought to continue building on strong foundations. That's like the first layer of that foundation is that co-founder relationship.
And I also noticed that you come from a family of entrepreneurs also. Your brother is an entrepreneur, your sister is an entrepreneur, and your brother-in-law is also an entrepreneur, correct?
There's a number of entrepreneurs in the family, and depending on how we define that, there's a dozen of cousins who are, business owners or, of one sense or another. But I did notice there was a list of the top 100, I think, startups started in Mexico. And out of the 100, 4 of them had a direct family relationship. So there was Clara. There was my sister, who has a medtech startup called Vinco, a cousin with a prop tech called GUERRY, and then my husband. So politically, his startup is a prop tech called Kasai, also operating across Latam. So, it was like my grandmother there is like directly and in a way responsible for 4 out of the 100 fastest growing startups in Mexico.
At the pasta gathering of Sundays, I'm sure the grandma is super proud.
Yeah, she's a proud grandma. She's a hard worker, and she's like.
I can only imagine. And having strong female figures, I'm sure it also have an impact in your life. I have the pleasure to share a panel yesterday with Cristina Cacho, an amazing woman, an amazing leader who is now leading the operations for your company in Latin America. So I noticed that you put a focus on diversity, which is something that I personally believe that it's super important, that it gives to society and also a best way to play. So I want to highlight that I really like that about you, and would like to ask you why, because it's not very common that male entrepreneurs also make a point on bringing diversity into their teams, because usually you play with the people that you are closer to, and in my like they are like all male team and all female teams, both sides. So what do you make you think and play this differently, bringing so many women into your leadership team?
Well, we think about it as one of our core values, and even as a technology company, before writing a line of code, we had codified 6 core values. One of those is inclusivity. And the idea behind it is that, we want to be this place where the very best people can come and do their most impactful work without having to worry, about who they are, gender, sexuality, nationality. And, as an LGBT leader myself, I try to exemplify that by, bringing my full self to work to the company every day. And as a proud brother to an entrepreneur sister, also that's something that's deeply meaningful, deeply impactful to me. That we have as much as possible, that gender equality and an environment where anyone can come and do their best work. We are very close to having gender parity across the company, and actually still. Looking to bring in more excellent women leaders, and we feel very, very fortunate that Cristina and some other senior execs have joined us, and really so much of what is happening in Latam right now and is possible is because people like her are choosing to join a company like Clara, and without that, none of this is possible.
I really love that, and also highlight that inclusion does not limit to women, and I love that, because I think that when we bring people from different walk of life, different beliefs, different opinions, and different genders and different sexual orientations, we really build a truly powerful team, because as a companies, we need to build companies that reflect the universe, the people that we are serving. So I commend you on that. It's really, really, really awesome and really meaningful. That certainly makes you a very, very, very special and valuable entrepreneurial leader, and I'm sure that many people in the audience will be super inspired by that. And Jerry, you study in the U.S. at Stanford. I'm sure we share many of the same professors and coaches and meaningful people in our life. How did your experience living abroad, having such a diverse background, and having the opportunity to see the world impacted you in your ability to think big? Because I saw a change over the last few years in Latin America in the size of the dreams of the entrepreneurs. Because before, we used to think as a region quite small because there were no money. And I would love to learn a little bit more about your experience and what was the trigger for you to think of a company that, when I say big companies make big impact, this is what I really mean on the purpose of becoming companies that reach a certain valuation, which means that they will play big, and also demystify the idea of the unicorns that some people get super excited about, but it really means the ability to have a lot of impact. So what was the trigger for you, your background, how it impacted you, and when did you realize that you can change the life of millions with Clara? Many questions in one, so shoot it.
Yeah, and I mean, so starting with, you know, that decision to go and study abroad, again, to Stanford and spend time in Silicon Valley, it very much is driven by wanting to have this impact at scale, and that being the reason that I'm drawn to this way of creating a company, and bringing together the resources, the support, the team, to be able to bring the future into the present, and create something valuable that wasn't there before. And 10 years ago, I mentioned earlier, I started as my first startup, first company in LATAM. I'd worked in consulting at this company called Bain, and actually used the savings from that to start this other startup. And we managed to pull together resources from here and there, so from the US, and there was a Startup Chile and 500 startups, and some different ways of getting funded back then. And we were a relative success, but we were not having the kind of scale of impact that I knew was possible and we wanted to have. And at that time, I saw there were people, like Julio Vasconcelos, who's an entrepreneur in Brazil, now an investor and friend. David Velez, who, before he started Nubank, who had, all one thing in common, or seemed to have, which was spending time in tech in the US and Silicon Valley. Stanford's a good launch pad to get to that. And so for me, that's what drove me there, and wanting to spend that time. And in hindsight, ended up being actually, very helpful for that personal, professional development. I met my life partner, Nico, in San Francisco. We both moved to Mexico afterwards together. But also professionally, I actually spent a couple of years leading the business functions of this company, where we built a spend management solution that is was doing, the product still exists, a lot of the things that we're now doing with Clara as well, and that having that eye-opening experience of what's possible to build in a cutting-edge environment, and then coming back to LATAM and seeing how much more there is to build. Certainly that was an edifying experience. Just more generally, what do great companies look like at different stages of their development? And so, yeah, for me, that was a great 5-6 years of my life that I think have helped set me up to be a better leader of a company like Clara.
And Jerry, you build your company on the premise of helping companies to scale using technology, and you scale up super fast, because from inception to reaching $1 billion valuation, it only took you a few months. And I would love to have your guidance for people who are considering in supporting entrepreneurs like yourselves, entrepreneurs that have a big vision, that have the skills, that have the competencies, that has the ability to be backable, to tell a story with the confidence that they can make it a reality and transform the world. How investors should look at companies and entrepreneurs to identify what is the key factors that make a company have the potential to become a billion-dollar business. So what are the few things that, if you were an investor, because you are as well, you put on the other side, what do you look to see if a company can be a billion-dollar business? Let's unicorn hunters together.
I think there's different reasons why someone might want to build a company. One of them is just wanting to provide for your family and providing a good life. That's a lot of the examples that I grew up with as well, and I think that's super valid and honorable. Also, some people might want to move to a kind of lifestyle that affords them more flexibility. That's also a very valid reason for others to start a company that gives them perhaps more control over their time. But if you want to start a company that has this massive impact at scale, then it is a really, I think, unique way of thinking about it, and how to organize yourself, and what are the commitments that you're making to yourself, the sacrifices that you'll have to make, people close to you might have to make, and just kind of how you organize everything from the team to investors and who you bring together. So the probabilities of success are never going to be that high, and so I think because these undertakings are so complex, and so it actually does require, I think, to be at the very top of your game and having as much going for you, as much preparation as possible. And so when I think in my case, and what I might look for, but in my case, what is a big driver of our success today, or up until now, is not just what's happened recently, but also a 15 years history before this. Really trying to learn from the best, and seeking out those professional experiences, starting a company before, spending that time in Silicon Valley, working for other entrepreneurs and learning from them as well, and being in a position now where all of those learnings really contribute to being able to make better decisions more quickly and lean on those learnings. And then with Clara itself, we've always been thinking also backwards from to create a really meaningful company that's still creating a lot of value 25 years from now. Then we want to be building from the very earliest stages on solid foundations, so that it's not just doing something to quickly get to market, and then we're kind of tripping over ourselves because we went so fast that we didn't set up things properly behind that. So while Clara, we from launch to getting capital at a unicorn valuation, was 8 months. There actually are also 8 months of work on the company before that, and building a lot of the foundations on our banking core, being able to operate as we do as a credit card issuer ourselves. So we have a principal member license, which means that we don't depend on any banks to launch our product, or kind of to dictate how that product should work. And all of that pre-work is hidden, right? It's invisible, and it might feel like things are going really slowly, but actually it's what sets you up for success afterwards. And that same idea of continuing to build the same layer. I have family worked in construction, so often a lot of my analogies go back to that. Every layer before has to be a solid foundation to keep building that skyscraper. That's how we continue to think about Clara as we go forward.
And building networks, right? As well. You are partnering with MasterCard,
yes,
with one of our very, very dear partners, as to not only issue the cards, but you are also building a very, very solid foundation to add, in addition to the technology, to simplify the process of reporting, account management, and all the money management backend, also to add a lot of benefits to your cardholders, to your clients. And I noticed that they are quite happy. I've been reading some tweets, and they were praising Clara on the simplicity of the process and the value of the benefits that you guys are delivering. But you also mentioned something that struck me as something quite interesting, is we use super high tech to manage our own company, and you mentioned Carta, because you have hundreds of shareholders. And this idea also resonated very much with me, because I raised money. I did a global private offering, which is like a massive global crowdfunding campaign using Reg D in the US to raise money from investors, which helped me reach a $1 billion valuation. And I wonder what was the first steps in democratizing access to investment opportunities, because you have partners, hundreds of partners that are co-building with you. And what was it important, and what is the value that you saw in that? Because traditionally, as entrepreneurs, we are trained, especially those that we come from the path that we come, to go if you're young, well, you're a lot younger than me, but go to an accelerator and then raise friends and family, and then venture capital money. But raising from the public was frowned upon culturally for many, many years. No one even knew at large that it was available. So what was your experience opening up for people to be part of your company and support your growth, and why do you think this is important for them as well?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have a number of our customers, for example, who are also investors, angel investors. One thing that's been really important for us as well is to extend that ownership of the company to basically every employee at Clara. So now that there's over 200 of us, there's over 200 employee shareholders, holders at the company. And we do all the documentation of that in the very same platform that our investors, who might put in tens of millions of dollars a piece into the company, to track their ownership. So our employees have the same access, and have access to the same tools to take actions on that ownership. And for us, this idea of we're all building this together is core to who we are. Again, it is actually one of those 6 core values, that idea of ownership, or everyone's responsible for their individual role, but also for the collective result. And I think that's true. Also, ultimately, one thing that sets us apart is that we have all of these people, not just a couple of founders, not just a few executives, but really everyone at the company who has an intuitive understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and is passionate about building something that has this impact and solves real problems for our customers, companies that are here in LATAM, and that we are building it from the ground up in a way that is optimized for the needs of companies here. Because ultimately that is so important. And one of the things that I believe does set a region behind in development is if we are overly relying on solutions that are built for a different context, for a different country, and then become imported in a suboptimal way, and it's more like an afterthought, or they're just putting another flag in another market. And this is true of companies that have been operating in our markets for 30 years or more. And I speak to some of their executives, and they'll share the frustrations that they also have in not being able to convince a global corporate headquarters that might be in the US or somewhere else to invest in the technology that is needed for LATAM. And so having that alignment internally and with the customers, the people that we serve, is so important, so that we can create something that is truly meant to help you know,
Yeah,
people here are
and the concept of co-building.
competitive. Sorry.
And the concept of co-building and having a skin on the game as well. I think that makes like a powerful community with everyone not only understanding and share the passion, the vision, but having a key role in building up the company. And not only Latam, being as I was mentioning offline, twice this month in Dubai and once in Saudi Arabia, and I feel that there are many regions that will benefit from a solution and a vision like the one that you brought to market and your team as well through Clara. So I think we're running out of time, and I was wondering if you have questions from the audience, so we can wrap up with some questions from the public. And before getting to that, Jerry, I want to ask you, what is the toughest thing that you have to face as an entrepreneur? Like the hard things about hard things, what were they for you?
I think one has to be ready for change all the time, and that's also one of the values that we go back to is we call it ABC, always be changing, and so being ready for any changes that might come your way. Right now the markets are behaving a bit differently than they were last year, but also when we started Clara, it was earlier in the pandemic, and it was also a very different time. And so just being, very open to change as part of that evolution, and, having that as a value internally so that, everyone else also, doesn't see, change as a negative thing, but as part of that natural evolution, I think is a challenge to navigate, but also critical.
And Jerry, I have a question here from Laura from Mexico. She want to know what's next for Clara.
Yeah, so we've had this recent process of expanding to some of the other major economies in Latam. So we announced our expansion to Brazil in December, Colombia more recently, and right now a lot of our focus is to continue to consolidate in the countries where we've launched. We've grown our customer base just in the first 20 weeks of the year by a bit over 3x. So we're serving 3 times as many companies. And so, continuing to build the processes internally to be able to offer, a great experience from the technology to, all of the one-to-one interactions that a customer might have with us, and continuing to build on the promise of the technology that we have, which is we want to help a company be able to manage all of their corporate spend through one unified platform, and be able to operate with, we say, agility and financial clarity at the same time. So continuing to build down that path.
And Pilar from Argentina wants to know, what does it take to raise money at a scale? What are investors looking for today in this very hectic economic environment?
I think generally it really comes down to 2 things. And to simplify, 2 things only. One is to have a big, bold vision of the future that's worth accelerating. And ideally, it's also a vision where there's a lot of compounding value. So, what we have today is the foundation of what Clara will be in 1 year and in 5 years. And there is this vision of where this is going. And secondly, we always need to be able to prove that we can get there, right? That we can start, drawing that line between where we are today and where we want to be, and that doesn't look so unrealistic. And, you have different layers of proof, from the team that you're bringing together to the product, to, early customer interactions, to then ultimately what will matter the most is, revenue and being able to make it eventually into a self-sustaining business. What changes in an environment like the one we have today is that there's much more attention to the last points there in that path of evidence, and being able to prove that you have that clearer path to break even and beyond, I think becomes more important. So I think it requires a shifting around of priorities. But otherwise, I think the kind of the trend is, or the kind of high level, it's the same things that matter, right? Like we're telling a story about where we want to go, and we want to show you that we can get there, and that we're going to work really hard to get there.
Gerry, we ran out of time. It was absolutely a delight and a pleasure talking to you. I think that our audience will be super inspired by what you are building, but even more inspired by who you are. It's truly a pleasure to get to meet you, and virtually people like yourself that has a vision of impact, but also a vision of purpose. And I want to extend you an invitation to join us on set as a judge at Unicorn Hunters. I will give you the details later, but as you know, at Unicorn Hunters, we are bringing together the entrepreneurs that represent the companies of the future from all over the world, diverse entrepreneurs from different walks of life, from different countries, and we put them in front of the public so they can invest in them and they can support them along their journey. So we'll talk more in details, but I just want to highlight how impressed I am by you, by what you are building, and also by your vision and the impact that you are driving in the region and beyond. As a Latin American entrepreneur, makes me extremely inspired and extremely proud. So thank you for the opportunity to learn more about you, about more about what you are doing, and the opportunity to share with our audience these very special Money Talks and the making of a unicorn episode. So thank you very much, Gerry, and for the audience, we invite you to follow up with Clara on the social networks. You will see the links here. If you are an entrepreneur, just think of them as a fantastic ally to help you scale your business with benefits and with purpose. And if you are also a member of our audience, join us in unicornhunters.com to learn more about Clara, learn more about Gerry, and many other companies that are transforming the way we live, we work, and we create value for the future generations. So thank you very much, Gerry, and thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Silvina. You're doing great work highlighting some worthwhile stories. So it was a pleasure being here.
See you very, very soon. Thank you, everyone. Ciao, ciao.